Welcome to the JP podcast.
Tom is the man.
I'm just joking.
Year anniversary.
I'm Crystal.
Share. Welcome to the JP podcast. Welcome to the JP podcast.
Welcome to the JP podcast.
Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on those notifications.
Welcome to the JP podcast. I'm John.
I'm Tom.
And we just wanted to come on because we're going to have Heather on. And we also wanted to explain why we haven't been putting out videos for a while. Not that we're giving up on the show, but, we have some side projects going on.
Yeah, and, this was a summer where we both got a little busy. I wanted to spend a little more time with the family. I have 2 young kids, so I wanted to really spend some time with them this summer. And then also, my side hobby that we've talked about before is drag racing, and it was a pretty big summer for that for me. Got pretty deep in that again, so really been spending a lot of time this summer doing those things. So unfortunately, hasn't left a lot of time for us to make videos,
Right. Yeah. And tell us a little bit about what you were doing, because I know you have the car there and you do it. Your brother's also into it. And we had mentioned before that you're a twin and arguably, the better looking of the two, right?
Yeah, the skinnier one. But no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's a family thing. Since I was a child, we've my father drag race. We went out to the track all the time on the weekends, and it just is something I'm starting to get back into. My brother did it since we were kids, and I kind of stepped away, and I had other hobbies and other things, and now that I'm back into the racing, it consumes a little time. I just had to rebuild my transmission and do a lot of these little projects you don't expect you have to do when you mess up your car.
And I've been telling Tom this whole time, because we do work opposite shifts, but when I do reach out to him, I'm like, get some videos, get a lot of pictures, because we will do a couple episodes on this, and hopefully, if I have the time or we can schedule it, I'm going to go out there and get some video myself. And did you get your car up and running? Is that what you've been doing?
Yeah. So I've been at a few races this year. The last race I was at, actually, we took third. But this next day I ended up dropping the transmission. So I just took it apart, got it back together, got the part replaced, and now the transmission's sitting next to the car. So on my next day off, I have to, which is a holiday, I'll have to crawl under the car and throw a transmission in it.
Wow. And that's a pretty expensive sport, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was a little less expensive when I got it. I didn't remember it being this expensive, but it's expensive. It's time consuming. It's, busted knuckles and everything, but man, there's something about it. I've done a lot of, exciting things in my life. I like a little bit of the thrill. So like I've been to the top of the Rockies skiing when the only time I've ever skied was down the Rockies, and I don't know anything about skiing. So I like to push the envelope a little bit. There's nothing like drag racing. It's so,
wow.
It's such an adrenaline rush, and you can feel it, it's the whole day of just excitement.
That's good.
But what about you? What have you been up to?
Well, the reason why I stopped was, I met up with 2 guys, and one is a movie. He's learning movies, how to make movies. I don't really know exactly how to say his title, but he's in college learning it. And another guy is a voiceover guy, and we're doing a documentary on basically my dad. And in order to tell the story about my dad, we had to tell the whole story about everybody that came before him. My dad was a musician, and coming into Lorraine area back in the 40s and bringing the music with them, and the times, and how the local musicians brought that and kept that going for them. So there's a lot to go with it. These guys, you're talking guys that, my dad being the youngest of them, and he's, in his mid to late 70s. So a lot of the guys have passed. So we want to tell their story, and it's pretty cool. It's just tough with, having a full-time job. The other guys having full-time jobs and doing what they're doing, and us getting together. But little by little, we're getting, and it's going to be very exciting. It's going to be very professional. It's not something I'm going to put on the podcast, but it is something I will talk about, so it's a really, really big and professional production.
And similar to myself in the racing world, you grew up in the music world with your dad playing music, and
Yeah.
it's just that was part of your life, was the band getting together and playing music, right?
Oh yeah, it just growing up the whole time. My dad was, Rico Suave with the guitar, So I'll put a picture of him, of what he looks like now with it. But yeah, I never not knew my father without a guitar, in the groups and the music he played. That's what I grew up with. So it's pretty exciting for me.
Uh, that's pretty cool, and it's just it lets us it lets a insight into the viewers of what we do outside of this, why it's a little chaotic sometimes trying to get together and making a video, on top of you doing that and working a full-time job, which when we say full-time, I mean 60 hours a week. So
Yeah,
it's
it's
a
been
lot.
hectic. It's been hectic and pretty much from what I'm hearing from everybody where they work, it's the same thing. Can't find coverage, can't keep people in, so everybody who is working, they're working a lot, maybe too much, but everybody's working a lot. And for those that are us that are working, I mean the money's good, but you need a little bit of time to spend it at the same time.
Oh
But
yeah.
I didn't want it to bump heads with what we have with the show here. So I kind of just put the show off to the side. And a lot of people were asking me, I'm like, no, I'm doing something that's sort of related, and I'll be coming back to it. It's not that
Yeah.
I'm giving up, but the subscribers, believe it or not, are still growing. And it seems to be the gun videos that, the one video that I put together and I really didn't do my homework on, and I kind of just slapped it together thinking that, it was just a filler, is the one that's doing great. So, we're going to have to, I'm going to bring Tom in on this because I want a little bit more adventurous. Tom is the personality of the show, and I want to bring him on and, and make right of the wrongs that I had on there. I had a couple little things that, sure enough, everybody's like, no, that's not right, and I'm like, yeah, that's true. But you can't pull a video off to edit it and put it back on. You lose all the numbers. So I'm like, I'm just going to let it be wrong, and then we'll come back to it.
And once again, that's another small insight to, for us, that's not even for the viewers. We're just discussing in front of them is, you know, maybe it's a little more wing it and just let us be us, you know what I mean, as opposed to planning some things. And it seems to that might be a little bit more of our route from now on.
Oh yeah, when we come back, I'm not going to care anymore. I don't even have things here set up in front of me like I used to be, and I was too busy trying to figure out what's going to happen. I don't care anymore. We're just going to do. We're not getting into the politics because I'll tell you what, everybody's crazy. You know what I mean? Both sides of it. Right or left. You guys are all nuts. You know what I mean? So we're not going to get involved in that, but we're going to get into some adventurous stuff, and we're going to make sure that we make it very entertaining. And my wife's been giving me ideas, and I've been talking to people and they've been giving me ideas, and we're going to try a lot of stuff that is just, either us or totally not us, and putting us in a bad or a funny situation at the same time, so we'll just give it a
I'm good
try.
with either one.
Yeah, me too. And maybe not as much, not weekly or, but, just putting out better quality. But I still stay in contact with Heather once in a while with La Casita Jardin because, she knows the ins and out of YouTube, so I'll throw her a question or, and she's got a lot going. She's going strong. And, her and I were chatting and she says, hey, let's do another episode. And I said, okay, I'll throw one in there, let everybody know what we've been up to, and that we haven't stopped the show, that we're just basically doing side projects for right now, but we promise to come back. But we're gonna reach out to her here shortly, and then we're gonna get her on here and talk to her and see what she got going on. So what do you think, Tom? Should I reach out?
Yeah, let's give her a call.
Okay, we'll be right back. And here she is. Welcome back to the program, Heather. How you been?
I'm good. How are you doing today, John?
I'm doing good.
Hi, Heather. It's good to see you again. Been a while for us, at least. I know I missed the last one. So, what have you been up to recently?
Oh gosh, it's been a busy summer. That is for sure here. Between garden, and then of course just general life and job work. But it's been an awesome adventure so far.
Yeah.
We've got a whole bunch of things that are kind of going to be coming up down the line. We did our first drop on a digital product, which was really exciting. So it's a quick start guide to small space gardening for anybody who is new or thinks that they're in too small of a space to garden. So we got that dropped this summer. And then, of course, we've been doing all of our videos on YouTube. So Thursdays and Sundays, we've been dropping videos left and right, getting a bunch of content out there. And we've got more stuff planned to do this fall. So we're not done yet.
Yeah, I follow
Awesome.
you on all the social medias, and you're just cranking out the videos. Every time I turn around, there's another video out or a short out. I'm just like, she is really really been busy this summer.
Mhm.
Yeah, we've really been trying to get more shorts out as far as things on the YouTube side, just to help get the content out there in short bites that make it doable and easy for people to implement in their garden and just get them a jump start on whatever it is that they are trying to do out there in their space, and get them to get their hands dirty. So yeah.
I know.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had a random question I've been thinking about. It's like,
Sure.
how was your season this year? How would you have ranked your growing season this year?
My growing season, like as far as production?
Yeah. Yep.
As far as production goes. So that was interesting. As John said, I've been cranking out quite a few different videos this year. So if you go back to spring this year, I did a seed starting tomato video, because we have been really trying to narrow down all of our, I guess what you would call varieties of things that we grow. Finding out what grows well for us in the space, what is going to be the most productive, the most space saving, give us the best growth habit for our zone, our climate, all of the things. Basically, there's a lot of different aspects to that. So this year we experimented with some different tomatoes than we did prior. We also experimented with some different tomatillos than we had in the past. And we've been able to narrow down more productive varieties than what we had done prior. So already this year, based upon what we've discovered, we already have a game plan set up for the next growing season. So we had great yield. We had great disease and pest resistance. We had really good endurance despite the heat and the intense amount of rain that we kept getting. Because when we would get rain, it would be kind of a gully washing sort of a rain. It would be 7 inches in 24 hours, max 36 hours. So that's a lot of water on the garden space, especially when you're already in a humid climate and you have plants that could be prone to blight and mold and fungus just because of the moisture content. We also were able to narrow down what we like as far as production on our green beans. And then we're also narrowing down our focus when it comes to the shelling peas. So we've got one variety for sure that we've nailed down and that we really like. It's been great for disease resistance, great production. We're probably going to be more stocked up than what we even need, and that's not counting what we gave away.
That's awesome.
So yeah, we'll be going well past next season with the food storage side of things. Yeah.
And that's not something I even thought about. I mean, I know we just had a recent storm where we are at here, and it really flooded some areas. But it you don't think about it as far as consistent rain, but it was very no rain for a week and a half or 2 weeks, and then just a downpour of rain for a day or two. So
yeah,
think about
that can be damaging, especially in cultivated areas, cities and things. On top of, it's not real great for plants either, especially if they're not in native soil. It does present the problem of washout. It washes out and erodes land as well as things in containers. And container gardening is one of those delicate balances. While you, on the one hand, you have the benefit of having complete control over your soil and the environment of your soil, there is also the fact that when weather hits, it can be easier and quicker to erode and or to deplete nutrients out of compared to in ground. So that is always something to take into consideration wherever you are. I'm not saying don't do raised or don't do containers, because that's 90% of what I do. And I can't do otherwise. Being on a dry creek bed, we're all rock underneath. So there's no dirt.
Yeah.
So what is that digital download? Can you explain it so people understand it a little bit more, what you got going on with that?
Yeah, so think of it like you would a mini ebook, basically. And what it is a digital download, and you can just download it straight to your computer, send it off and get it printed, or you can just leave it on whatever device you use. If it's a Nook or if you do Kindle, whatever you've got going on, you should be able to download it onto any device. And it reads basically like a small guide to small space gardening. So we walk you through the 5 very easy steps that we have set up for gardening in small spaces. So you do those 5 steps. You can have this completed in 3 days. So we're talking a DIY weekend. But honestly, if you're really a go-getter, you could have it done in probably a day if you really set your mind to it. And there's none of the fuss in there. There's no, I guess you could say, wishy-washy gray area stuff. We kept it very, very simple, very, very cut and dry, so that it makes it easy for you to have a good baseline for starting your garden. So you've got a solid foundation, and then from there, you can kind of figure things out as you go, things that you prefer to grow, things that you don't prefer to grow, because everybody's different. Not everybody wants to grow tomatoes just the same way as not everybody would grow tomatillos. I'm one of the only people that I know in this area that's successful in growing tomatillos. So you could be completely successful at something in a small space that somebody else isn't, and you should definitely be focusing on growing whatever it is you're successful at. And that's what that guide is for, to lay that foundation so that you can be successful and have a great starting place to go from and just keep growing.
And as far as us, we're in a state that does freeze. We have a heavy winter.
Yeah.
As someone who is honestly looking into possibly gardening, what is something we could do before the winter hits to be ready for next year?
To be ready for next year for the garden?
Yeah, if I wanted to put a garden in next year, because obviously it's a little too late to start this year I don't have one in. Is it, obviously it's too late to start, I would assume. Is
No.
it, no?
No,
Oh,
it's not. It's not. You're actually, what, do you know what zone you're in exactly by chance?
No.
Not sure. Okay.
We're in
Our
Ohio.
guide also walks you through that.
It does. Okay. And where could they find this this guide at?
The guide is, we have a stand store set up. I will go on ahead and I'll give you that link so that you can click it down below. It'll be a direct link straight to the guide. No muss, no fuss. Click it and you're there, and you can get your download easy peasy.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah. So no, you're not too late to grow a garden. And actually, if you're a beginner gardener, 9 times out of 10, I recommend that people garden in the fall.
Okay.
Believe it or not. Gardening in the fall is so much easier compared to gardening in the spring, summer. Number one, you have a reduction in pest pressure. You also have the reduction of basic diseases. The only main element that you have to, I guess you could say, combat is going to be the cold. But the good news is that the majority of the varieties that you grow during this time and into the winter months, they're all cold tolerant. Usually highly cold tolerant, and you might be surprised by the fact that if you get something very, very, like, we're prone to ice. it's been quite a number of years. I want to say 2017-ish, 2016, since we've had a really deep snow hit us, so we get more ice. And it never fails every single spring. If there is a seed that hasn't germinated for me that fall, I'll end up finding a beet or a turnip that spring because it's had its cold stratification and it's sprung up and I've got an early spring harvest. So whatever doesn't technically come up for you in the fall, early winter months doesn't necessarily mean that it won't be there come spring when the soil starts to warm up.
I get it
Yeah.
now. I get it. And can you tell us generally what area you're at again?
We are a zone, well, they're working on rezoning us. So we're not exactly sure what we are. Technically, we are a zone 7. They are thinking of moving us to a 6B because of our heat. And then, of course, for our record low temperatures. So we're kind of in a flux area right now. I usually factor for myself where I am just because of we live down in what they call a holler here. So that's just a really low point. And we tend to get a lot of the heavy dew. We get a lot of the fog and it settles right on top of us. So it's very easy for things in my garden to frost early because of freezing fog. And then the dew, if the dew freezes, I could get an early frost on a lot of my crops because of that. Just the cold and then the moisture on top of them, they'll go bye-bye. So I try to pretend that I'm more 6B, closer to 6, if at all possible. And then if I have longer warmth than that, great. If not, oh well.
And it's okay to say what state you're from. It's Arkansas, right?
Yeah, Arkansas. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're in the Ozark mountain range, and there's a little bit of a war because the Ozarks is actually Missouri and Arkansas. So in Missouri, it's the hills of the Ozarks is what it's called. On the Arkansas side, it is the Ozark Mountains. And so a lot of the locals will get into fights across the state line about, no, they're hills, no, it's mountains, no, it's hills. And both is actually accurate because on the Arkansas side, we have the mountain ranges. We have all of those huge peaks and valleys, whereas on the Missouri side, they do have more of that nice rolling hill structure and beautiful open grazing land that we lack in some places here in the Ozarks.
Okay.
We just got with the digital download and all that, and then I also noticed the shirt you're wearing. Maybe you got some merch, or is there a place we can go to get all this? And what's some of the other things you might have?
Yeah, we just started getting in our merch products, so we're going to be doing t-shirts, and we have a local artist here in town who has put one together for us. And she's really great. I love her. Tammy, you're awesome. If you're watching this video. Yeah, so can't speak highly enough of her, but she has her own business, and then she does things like this as an extra business that she does as well. And yeah, so we're going to have t-shirts for sure. 2 different types. One's going to be a teal and one's going to be an oatmeal color, and that'll be coming out. It's probably going to be a few weeks before we get the rest of them in for purchasing. Hopefully by the time this drops, I'll have the shop all set up with a link and everything set for people to purchase them. But yeah, so we've got that going on, and that digital product is currently available, and we're working on a secondary guide right now, and it's about soil health and maintenance. So it's all the information that we have accumulated over the last 3 years of having to deal with contaminated soil and soil health, and making sure that you can develop it well in your garden, and then how to maintain it and correct it if you find yourself in a position like we did, how to do so if you're not starting off with a really good foundation and you had a oops.
Well, before we wrap it up, I just wanted to ask a question on one of your videos. where you were talking about the prepper community, the homestead community, and I was kind of lost, but I was following it. I wanted to comment, but it comes across as a JP podcast, so I got to figure out a way to come on it, as just regular John, But can you tell us a little bit about what's going on with that, in that video you had?
Yeah, so it's been very interesting to watch because within the last, I want to say, year and a half, more and more of those who've been in the homesteading communities or who jumped onto the homesteading and prepping bandwagon, they're really like backpedaling and backstepping and or just leaving completely. And it's been very interesting to watch. And a little hard too, because we don't have any big names necessarily that are leaving, but I can understand really with some of the homesteading infighting that's going on within the community there, because there's still some drama going on between some of the major names in the community. But yeah, so I guess the bottom line is when you're getting into this kind of a lifestyle, and that's exactly what it is. And I think that isn't maybe talked about enough and explained enough by those of us who have been living this way for a long time, is we kind of take for granted that this is just how we live. We don't communicate what all goes into it and what it entails. So you'll have a lot of new people. Oh, well, I'm leaving the city. I had an apartment and now I've bought 40 acres. Okay, well, that's a massive lifestyle change. And I would be shocked if I went from what I have to an apartment, let alone going from something completely the other way and having to try and learn to do it all. That's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. It's a lot of expectations to put on yourself. And I think it's kind of bred into the community a little bit of this comparison trap stuff going on, and how good you are at self-sufficiency, and oh, you're not completely self-sufficient, therefore you're not a homesteader, or you're not an appropriate prepper, or there's a whole lot of that dynamic going on. And while I understand that the social algorithms really do like and thrive off of negative content, so on YouTube, for instance, I hate to say this, but on YouTube, you can pretty much guarantee that anything fear-based, that is going to trend faster than anything else. I think it was Mark Twain who said something to the effect of bad news travels faster than good news can get its shoes on. So that sort of content trends, and that negativity that we are breeding into the community, I think is kind of causing a lot of people to leave the community, and leave because they can't meet expectation, leave because, oh, I'm actually not doing what everybody says I should be doing, so I'm not really a fill in the blank, whatever it is. So they're getting out. So I think we need to, probably those of us who are on the positive side, explain the lifestyle a little bit better, what it entails, a little bit more of the ins and outs of it. And then we really need people to understand that you can't do it all. And you shouldn't do it all. I mean, the blacksmith was the blacksmith. He didn't run cattle, and he didn't have hogs, and he didn't do chickens too. He didn't grow the wheat. Everybody had a thing that they did, really, in our colonial period. And you went to those people for those things, and you traded what you had with that person. Mm-hmm. So it was a fair exchange. It wasn't, nope, I've already got hogs, so I don't have to give you beef because I've got beef and I've got hog.
And here's a question from the outside looking in. Just to bring it full circle from where we started right before you came on. As a person who it's your lifestyle, this is what you do, this is how you live. Is it okay though for it to be a hobby? Is it okay for it to just be a hobby? Is it against status quo if you just make it a hobby and now it's an issue?
I would say, I guess when it comes to hobby, I get where you're coming from that. And that's a very good question. So that might end up being a video content that I maybe talk about a little bit more this winter. But what you see here in the area that I live in is, for the most part, it's a small town. So small town living means most of these people own farmland, but they're teachers. They work at FedEx. They work at a local doctor's office, but they raise chickens. They have goats, but they're also a janitor. So for us here in the area, and maybe that's just where my perspective in seeing things kind of comes from, is that it isn't necessarily that it's a hobby, it's just what you do. It's your life, and you do it because you love it and you enjoy it. It's not, you're not just trying to reap a benefit or a reward off of it. There are obvious rewards. Chickens give you eggs, they give you meat. You have cows for dairy or meat, and you have that bonus. But a lot of these families, and it is families that are running these places, do this long term because it's what they love. It's not their day job. So if you ask them what they do for a living, they're going to kind of look at you and scratch their heads and go, how do I answer that? Are you asking how I make money, or are you asking how I live, or are you asking about my farm? Because it's all intertwined.
And
it's just all interconnected.
I get the negativity part because like we did a $100, barely $100, shotgun that was rusty, barely even working, you know what I mean? And we just had fun with it. And there were guys on there that were just mad, like, oh, you ruined it. And it, like it was their money, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
we're just having fun with it. It ain't worth any less or any more than what it was. It was $100, you know what I mean? So they're just mad because they want me to keep it, the way they want it, but being on the show, you got to take the comments, but why don't you get your own gun and do the same thing we did? You know what I mean?
Right.
Sometimes I'm just like, whatever, you know what I mean? I don't, thanks for commenting, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's not all that you can do. But I don't know. I think, and I think the other thing too is realizing what you're interested in as a homesteader. So if you're doing that, or even if you're prepping, know what you are interested in and what gets you excited. Because if you try to do it all, you're gonna have massive burnout.
Yeah.
So, and that's a lot of what I'm seeing is people aren't realizing that this is a 365. There aren't always vacations. You're lucky if you can take a vacation once every 5 years, but you don't care because this is your life. This is how you live. You have to love it. Otherwise, it's just a third or fourth job.
And you have to learn to fail and accept it, because like with me, I got 13 gallons of some pinkish vinegar looking substance that was supposed to be raspberry wine. You know what I mean? It's still in my closet. So you just have to learn. What's that?
Yeah.
But he uses it for vinaigrette now on his salads.
Yeah, so
it might actually be good that way. You never know.
No, I wouldn't go near it. You know what I mean? But it's just one of those things. I like to try different things, even though I know I'm going to fail. And with the wine, I failed miserably. And I did everything that I was supposed to, and It just didn't
Mhm.
come out right. So, it's just one of those things. People are not, certain people are not going to be happy no matter what you do. So you can't let them influence what you do.
No.
Just got to keep doing what you love. But I like what Tom said. I think it could be a hobby as far as starting off, and before you get fully committed to that
So,
lifestyle. I get that.
yeah,
Oh
my
yeah.
mind frame thinking that way was like, hey, that person in the apartment, you like you said, you went in, you went way too far. You jumped in, you went in. Now, hey, maybe you like tomato, like you said, maybe you like tomatoes. You can grow them inside. You get a lamp and dedicate a closet to it, and you don't have to buy tomatoes now. Now you're seeing a benefit, and you're doing something fun without altering everything you have. You know what I mean? So maybe just
Yeah.
finding that everybody has that balance. Finding that balance of, like you said, what you're willing to do. Because I've actually said this 100 times. The one job in this world I probably wouldn't want is a farmer, because it's all day, every day. You don't get to leave. There is no, you go out for the night and it's only a couple hours because you have to be home because you have to do something in the morning. So those are definitely, it's a respectable and intense lifestyle, like you said.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it is. And I mean, you do have to develop a little bit of a thick skin when it comes to some things, because oh gosh, I remember this had to have been around 2018. We ended up we had a snake that decided she needed to lay her eggs in our garden bed.
Hmm.
In spring. Yeah. So stumbling upon that first thing when I was out there, let me just say that disposing of snake eggs,
Yeah, I'd have to set up claymores all over the place. You know what I mean? Because I can't deal with snakes.
he quit. John would just move. John would move. He'd sell the property. That's it. I'm done.
oh,
John,
I mean, it was nauseating. It was, yeah. So you do have to develop a little bit of a thick skin, because you're going to encounter life, and you're gonna learn things, and you're gonna fail before you succeed. I can promise you, every single gardener out there has killed thousands of plants. That's why they're a gardener.
Yeah.
That's why they're good at what they do, because they've had that many fails.
Yeah.
So you may have textbook knowledge, but textbook knowledge won't necessarily always help you when it comes to gardening. And that's one of the primary things that I tell people when I'm down at the garden center, because they'll say things along the lines of, well, I'm not a master gardener. Good. Thank you for not being a master gardener, because that means that you aren't coming in with this preconceived box of how everything has to be.
Yeah.
Because I can't tell you how many times I've had my plants defy my expectations, defy what they should be doing. I've had so much hate on, really, this spring, how I planted my tomato plants and the tomato plant information. I mean, of all videos, I never expected that to be the ones that I got the most angst off of, but I did, because you had master gardeners coming on there, and then gardeners from different places saying, oh no, you're a beginner, you're not growing them like this, you don't know what you're talking about. No, I know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about it in my area and in my space. And where I am, you can't grow tomatoes that way. Growing them in a pot is really, really challenging here, just because of the high heat. You would have to have a large pot just to make sure you've got enough soil to help them stay cool and to help retain moisture, because even though we're a moist environment, you're going to lose a lot more water, and tomatoes are water hogs. So it's very easy for people to have those. You'll see them at the big box stores where the tomatoes are in the pots with the trellises already, and they're already, growing cherry tomatoes in them. You can't do that here. If you leave that tomato in that container, it's going to die, because
wow.
it's not enough soil for us here. Now, somewhere out east, it would be totally fine. Even out west, it would probably still be fine, as long as it had some shade and a little bit of protection and definite watering. But so coming in with these preconceived notions of how to garden can actually be very detrimental. So everything that I know from where I am. If I were to move, say, to New York or to Phoenix, I'm going to have to throw what I know out the window, because my plants there are going to respond completely different compared to what they do here. Out east, I'll still have issues probably with some fungus and blight because there is more moisture there. Out west, that's not going to be as much of a concern. I could let tomatoes and tomatillos ramble. I wouldn't have to worry about trellising as much. They can lay all over the ground and I don't have to worry about excess moisture and cutting off extra unproductive branches to make sure that there's proper airflow. So just because somebody is not a master gardener doesn't mean that they can't garden and grow well. Because you just learn.
Yeah, in any field you do, it's going to be experience. You know, same thing like the hobbies we just talked about earlier, the lifestyles that John and I talked about, how we grew up in, which is exactly what we talked about prior to you coming on, is how we grew up in the lifestyle we were in. It's the only reason I know half the things I know is because that's how my life was. That's just how I grew up. You know, that's what I witnessed growing up. So I could very well see the same for gardening.
Yeah, and here it's not unusual. Pretty much everybody in the summer months will have a backyard garden. So it's not at all uncommon for people to be growing things. And we all live, I'm obviously in a housing tract, and I'm actually the only one, I think, in my housing tract that has a garden currently. There's one gal who tried this summer, but she got it in a little bit too late and it kind of cooked and she gave up. I'm hoping she'll try again. I've been trying to encourage her to try again, but there's nothing wrong with a backyard garden. That used to be a thing. That was called the Victory Garden, and that happened around World War II. It was considered your civic duty to have chickens and a garden out back because you couldn't expect the government to feed you everything that you needed. So there was just a natural tendency for most Americans to have that, and that never left here. It stuck in this area pretty strong.
All right. Well, Heather, I love everything that you've been having going on, and I know that totally didn't make sense, but I'm going to leave it on there the way I phrased it. But with the channel and all the videos you've been putting out, I love it. I've been following it. Every so often I'll find a video and like, oh, I haven't seen this one yet, and I'll play it. But it's always a pleasure to have you on, and always a pleasure to hear from you and see that you're doing well.
Thank you. I appreciate being on here.
Very good seeing you, Heather. We greatly appreciate you.
So
thanks, Tom.
Don't forget to check Heather's channel out. We'll put all that information up there. And before I go, I just wanted to say we did promise to have the giveaway for Swartz Food. We are going to get to that. Like I said, we have, Tom and I, like we said in the beginning, we got some things going on. We will get back to all that, and I promise we will have that. So just keep an eye out, and then we'll try to put a video out here and there until we both come back from our little projects on the side, and we come back strong. So don't forget to like and subscribe. And Heather, if you could end it the way you do, we'll get out of here.
All right, guys, as always, keep it simple, natural, and essential. We will see you on the next video. Bye, guys.